Hi, I'm Chase Stanton. I'm the station manager here at SCTN. Today I'm joined by Catherine Scull, who's the City Assessor for the City of Saline, and we're going to be talking some about your department and questions that people have in general for your department.
Very good.
All right, so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So if you could start and talk about your background a little bit, how you came to become City Assessor.
Good question, because probably nobody goes into education to be an assessor. I have a real estate and finance background from Eastern Michigan University. I had worked for various positions around the county, Washtenaw County Equalization, different municipal offices. Ended up working my way up in the assessment field. Have been the city assessor in Saline since October of 1995, so that's 16 years now. Also a licensed real estate appraiser as well, so a little bit of a real estate and finance background.
Okay. Do you do any real estate on the side still?
No.
No?
No, not, the city job keeps me busy enough, and it could be a conflict of interest, so
Okay.
not currently, no.
Yeah, fair enough. And so can you kind of talk about what your office does, what you do on a day-to-day basis?
There are two employees in my office, myself and Joyce Witt, who is the assistant assessor. And basically our office maintains all of the property files for the city. That would be all of the legal descriptions, the land, building data. We monitor and track ownership changes, so any deeds that come in, any property owner changes, as well as change the valuations of the property from year to year, so track sales activity and market data to do that. Part of our day-to-day is doing field inspections, visiting the properties, new construction, so if we have any new homes, new businesses in the area, putting together a property record card for that. Again, monitoring ownership changes, going to get a little bit technical, principal residence exemption changes that may be familiar to some of our property owners, and then basically just trying to keep up with the public and maintain valuation changes.
Wow. And so how does working in Saline differ from, another city you might be working in terms of your position, your department?
When I worked for Washtenaw County, you're looking at a county as a whole. When I have worked as an appraiser, you're all over the place looking at an individual property, specific maybe for a bank appraisal. Working for the city of Saline, been there 16 years. I love working here. It's a nice community to be working in. It's nice and compact.
Yeah.
We have a variety of properties to review, so we review the big plants from the ACH facility through the shopping centers and all of the residential properties, so there's enough to keep us busy. So a good variety.
Yeah, definitely. And this just kind of came to mind. What kind of changes, you've mentioned you've worked there 16 years, have happened with the economy, and I'm assuming your job's changed over the years?
It has, and interestingly, and I guess it's beneficial that it balances out. In the mid-90s, end of the 90s, early 2000s, we had a lot of new construction. A lot of the subdivisions that we have in the city today may not have been here. So we have Torwood, Wildwood, a number of the condominiums that are fairly recent if you think of a 16-year span. So there was a lot of new construction. At that time, we were very busy with that, just keeping up with all of that. That, of course, has slowed down, so we aren't spending as much time measuring new homes and putting them on our files. However, the sales study aspect, trying to monitor the market changes because of the downturned economy and all of the other problems out there, foreclosures, distressed properties, that is more time consuming. So
sure.
that takes on a whole other life, and the lack of new construction means that we have a little bit more time to work on our studies to monitor the valuation end of it.
Yeah, I'm sure things have changed quite a bit.
They have. They have. Hopefully things will start to turn around again.
Can only hope.
Yeah.
And so we mentioned that, there's a lot of commonly asked questions for your department. So if you kind of want to go over some of the most frequently asked ones you get.
I would say one of the more frequently asked questions is whether a particular change that a homeowner might consider making to their property, how that would affect their
Yes.
tax bill. And I hope to put people's minds at ease and that make known that any change that is just a replacement, normal maintenance and repair, that would be a new roof, new siding, new windows, replacement of a furnace, kitchen remodeling, all of those sorts of things. If it's just a major or minor upkeep to the property, those sorts of things do not affect a tax bill. So people can rest, they are all nervous that everything they do is going to affect the tax bill. And that's not true. Actually, it would be more just new things.
Like
so
an addition.
An addition, right. If it didn't exist before and it's there now, that would affect.
Okay. And so we mentioned addition, other things like decks, or what are some common examples of
Anything that someone, so I guess we're speaking more residential property right now because that probably is affects more people. And so if you think of things that wouldn't have existed on a home initially, so that could be a deck, an addition, if there had not been a garage there before and they add a new garage, or perhaps a finished basement.
Okay.
Those are things that are accessible,
Okay.
that add market value to the property. And if it had not been assessed prior, it would be picked up then in the future.
Yeah. And I'm assuming there has to be some people out there who try and do it on the down low. Is that a frequent problem, or is it not very much here in the city?
I don't think it's a problem so much in the city. I'm sure it happens often.
Yeah.
It's our job to just try and make sure that everything is uniform. Really, above all, assessing offices are required to make sure that things are as uniform as they can be. So, most people will express that they don't mind paying their fair share, but they don't want to pay more than their fair share. So it really is our job to try and make sure that everything is uniform. And it doesn't mean that we're being nitpicky or out to get anyone, but it does mean that we try to make sure that there's an equity.
Yeah. And so what are some of the other questions that people frequently have?
One of the other big questions is how a sale would impact an assessment.
Okay.
I think it's a misconception that people think that a sale may just be divided, the sale price is divided in half, and the assessed value will just automatically be then half of the sale price.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Yes, and that's not true. And actually the definition of assessed value or the state equalized value is 50% of market value.
Okay.
That's an important distinction. It's not 50% of sale price.
Yeah.
And what we do is we actually do review every sale in the city by neighborhood. So we have a study time frame that we are required by the State Tax Commission to review. And we will review all of the sales that occurred within that time period, make sure that the information that we have on the property is accurate, try to talk with the homeowner or maybe the realtor and just understand the dynamics of the sale. And we do that so that we can come up with an accurate idea of how much that particular neighborhood is changing. So to put it very simply, we compare the assessment on record to the sale price at the time of the sale, and we do that for each sale. So we come up with then, simply it's an average, but that's a little simpler than it really is. But we determine a general level of change that is applied then to the whole neighborhood. So even if a property didn't sell, that's how we can change property values. It wouldn't be fair to just change a property that sold and make it directly equal to its sale price. This is, I think, a better way to make sure the whole neighborhood is benefited or is changed by the general level of sales that we see.
And I'm sure that's part of what you mentioned that you've been busy with lately.
Yes, yes, it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to fish all that out.
All right. And so everyone knows we might be peeking a little bit because we're going to get into a few technical things and other questions that people might have for your department or you in general. And so I'll be cheating too.
Okay.
And so we kind of went into assessments, so I guess that's a good bridge gap. We can go on how assessments are determined each year. That's probably the next step.
And actually, you mentioned that it gets a little technical, and I'm only going to skim over things a little bit. I'm obviously not going to get into a lot of detail, but I will say that we put out a brochure or a pamphlet each year with our assessment notices, and that might bridge the gap on some of the shortcuts I might take today. Also, people should feel free to call me or our office at any time. But the assessors throughout the state follow a similar set of rules. So part of that is how assessments are to be changed. Assessments are set as of December 31st of each year, so at the end of the calendar year, that's the status. So property that, for example, is maybe newer construction, maybe partway through construction, whatever the status of the property is as of December 31st is how that property will be assessed and then taxed for all of that next year. That is the cutoff. So for anyone thinking about building a new home, if the property is minimally constructed as of December 31st, that is the basis for the value then for all of that next year.
Oh, wow.
So that's part of it, would be the status of the property as of December 31st. It's commonly called tax day for us, meaning that's the cutoff. The other aspect is the sales study, how that comes into play. And I mentioned residential properties. We do review, of course, commercial and industrial property as well. That is a little bit more complicated, but the methods are similar. It's just easier to explain with residential. Residential, we obviously or hopefully have enough sales data that we can look at each neighborhood or similar neighborhoods, look at the sales activity that we have and come up with an idea of a general amount of change. We are currently working on the values for 2012.
Okay.
For residential properties, the sales activity that will influence change for 2012 are any sales that occurred between October 1st of 2010 through the end of September of 2011. So for that time period, we are reviewing all sales activity within the city, and that will then generate the change that people will receive for next year.
Okay.
We send out assessment notices about February or March, and that will reflect the work that we've been doing all year long.
And just so everyone knows, we'll reiterate there is a brochure and there is information that can be found, and we'll be talking about that later on.
Okay.
Just in case anyone's watching this and gets a little bit nervous.
Yes.
And so what kind of oversight, I guess, is there to your department when you're going through this assessment process?
Well, that's a good question, and then actually there's different terms that are often used interchangeably, so I can kind of clarify that. The assessor's office, any assessor's office, whether it be City of Saline, Pittsfield Township, or anywhere in Michigan, they are responsible for watching and monitoring their own community and making annual adjustments to value. Those values are published every February. The At that time, they're just referred to as an assessed value,
Okay.
basically because the assessor's office put it out there. At that time, they're tentative, and then there's a board of review process, which I can get into later. The county then watches over, so to speak, all of the different governmental units
Okay.
in each county. So in Washtenaw County, we have Washtenaw County Equalization, who oversees, kind of keeps their pulse on Washtenaw County areas of government.
Yeah.
Then there is the State Tax Commission. The State Tax Commission not only reviews all of the local units, but also reviews the county. So there's a 3-tier process. When it's all said and done, after the close of March Board of Review, after the county's reviewed it and the state has reviewed it, those assessed values that were published in February and March now have the state stamp on it and are called state equalized values. If everything was done correctly, they're one and the same. It just means that the state and the county verify that the original assessed value was done correctly. And so there are reviews at the county level and at the state level. The State Tax Commission publishes bulletins and has rules, and it's all, of course, part of the Michigan Property Tax Act as well. So it's a lot more confined and regulated than people realize, I think.
Yeah, numbers aren't just being thrown around
No.
randomly.
No, there's a lot of processes and a lot of proofs.
All right, and you mentioned that there's a tentative assessment period, so I know I've heard that that's open for people to dispute it or
Yes.
other things to come up.
Yep. So when the notices of assessment are mailed, and they're usually mailed the end of February, beginning of March. I will say townships and cities might have a slightly different time schedule because of city charter or whatever, but generally around that same time. And at that time, they are tentative. There is an appeal process, so on the assessment notices, there's detail as to how to appeal, when to appeal, phone numbers to contact, the dates of the Board of Review. In the City of Saline, our Board of Review begins, I think, with the third Monday. We have day and evening appointments available. They are done by appointment.
Okay.
People can also appeal in writing if they prefer. I would encourage a meeting if they're willing to do it. Also, even prior to going that step and actually appealing with the Board of Review, it's a good idea just to call our office, and if the customer has questions or concerns, just to ask.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something very, very simple that can be explained, and they are satisfied with the answer. Could be, hopefully not, that maybe there was a mistake made on our end, and that can be fixed relatively easily if it's brought to our attention. So after then the Board of Review periods, there's a week or so that people have to appeal, and that again is set by state calendar. I know it seems very restricted on the time, and we've had complaints about that as far as why is it so limited in its time. And that, again, is all really a result of the state calendar and state function. We can't override that. But once that Board of Review process is completed and once it closes, the values are considered to be final.
Okay.
And then they become the basis for tax bills.
Yes. And I guess from there we can go into tax bills. If your office mails them, just kind of general overview.
So the assessor's office is responsible for maintaining and changing the assessments and the ownership and property information.
Okay.
We set the value, then all of those values are picked up by the treasurer's office, who actually then does the billing and the collecting of the taxes. So the treasurer's office sends out the bills, the treasurer's office collects.
Okay.
But the tax bill is really just an equation. The tax bill is determined by multiplying the value times the millage rate. The millage
Okay.
rate is set by either city council or the school's other taxing authorities that levy a millage.
Okay.
So once, the treasurer's office really just pairs the final millage rate with the value as determined by the assessor's office and generates tax bills. And they mail those out this July 1st and December 1st of each year.
Okay. And how often, has the millage rate changed in your experience? It's obviously not set in stone like the assessment, but
It will fluctuate every year, but it really has changed minimally. The city portion of the millage rate has remained the same for several years now. I
Okay.
really don't know how far back, but it has not changed. The overall millage rate has changed somewhat, but very minimally. I think that all of the taxing authorities, and by taxing authorities, I mean the different parts of a tax bill. That would be the schools, City of Saline in this case, Washtenaw Community College, the library, the intermediate school district, and Washtenaw County.
Okay.
They all levy a millage. They are all trying very, very hard to keep it down, to not raise that millage, which is tough because the property values are going down.
Yes.
And I mentioned that it's really just a pairing. So when the property values go down and the millage rates stay the same, obviously that means that all of the taxing authorities are bringing in less money to operate.
Yeah, which has to be difficult.
Yes, that's what you read a lot in the newspapers, is how everybody's hurting.
Yes. And to segue from that, if a property owner is having trouble, we mentioned there's resources they can go to.
Yes, absolutely, and this is important. If a property owner is having a financial problem, and by that it probably needs to be a pretty severe problem.
Yeah.
They can absolutely contact their local assessor's office, so whether it be the City of Saline, Lodi, or Pittsfield, and ask about the hardship application. So it's either called a hardship application or a poverty exemption.
Okay.
They are 1-year exemptions that can be given as relief. There are some requirements for that, and these requirements are set by the State Tax Commission. So there is an application and also financial information that would need to be provided. However, I will absolutely maintain that irregardless of which office that it is applied through, there is very strict confidentiality enforced. So, it's tough for people to do that in the first place. A lot of people feel very uneasy coming forward and admitting that they need help, but in this economy there's really no shame in it. We have people that through no fault of their own have lost jobs, have been trying, and just are at a point where they need help. Or we have people that are on severe fixed incomes that they just can't make it, and maybe they just need a little bit of assistance. So it's not out there for everyone. It is deferring the tax responsibility somewhere else when we make an exemption like this, but it's absolutely there to help people. There is information on our city website, or people can get information at City Hall. Or again, if it's not the City of Saline, it could be the township. Every assessing office has a program like this to help people. It is a 1-year exemption, so it's for 1 year at a time because circumstances can change. So if someone were to request and receive the exemption, they would just need to reapply the next year.
Okay.
So anyone listening to this that thinks that they know someone or they themselves are in a position where they're feeling a real struggle, they should feel free to contact any local assessor's office. Also, I think it's Washtenaw County Area Social Services,
Okay.
the Washtenaw County Senior Center. I know I have the actual titles incorrect, but there are different agencies out there that can provide assistance.
Great. And even though, some of the guidelines might be stricter, people shouldn't feel intimidated if they are in
Not
a
at all.
position they think they need the help.
Absolutely. And it can be as simple as just calling our office. We can mail a packet out so that they can see what it entails,
Mm-hmm.
and they can decide at that point if it's something they feel comfortable with or if it would apply to them. Or if they know of someone, maybe a relative or a friend that is having trouble, that maybe they are hearing this and they think, oh, well, this might help someone else. We also do get this out to the Saline Area Social Services, the Saline Senior Center, and all of the churches annually. So every
Okay.
January or February, we do mail out a packet to, again, the churches, the social services office, and the senior center. So they're out there. I think I try to post one at the library as well. So if people are uncomfortable coming to me, they can check it out on the website. They can call. They can check with some of these other offices as well.
Lots of information.
Yep, it's there.
It's out there.
It is there.
I guess from there we can talk about the website and some of the other ways we've mentioned a lot, and
Okay.
we can go through them on how people can contact you, your office, where all the information is if they want to come find it.
Sure. Again, my office consists of two people, myself and Joyce Witt, and we can be reached at the City Hall phone, which is 429-4907, and my extension is 2208, and Joyce's extension 2218. Our city website has a lot of information. We try to provide a fair amount of detail. I have a section on frequently asked questions, things that I can anticipate, some of which I've already covered here.
Mm-hmm.
Our city website is www.cityofsaline.org. There is different department information, so you can click on the toolbar by department and look for the assessor's office. Also on the assessor's office section, we have different forms that are common. Try to provide a link to other useful websites. We also have online assessment and tax data, so that is helpful. A lot of realtors and appraisers use that service, I'm sure. They don't come into our office anymore to get a copy. It is a little bit limited, so what we have in our file, of course, not all of it is online,
Mm-hmm.
but a fair amount of information is out there. So if, for example, someone wants to check and find out, oh, did I pay that tax bill and when did I pay it, they could look that up by using their parcel ID number or their address
Okay.
to access that. And we have some general building sale information on there. I do have information on the hardship, and the hardship application is available online, so they can print it right there and turn it in. So we try to cover all the bases.
Yeah, it's all there. If someone needs it, they can find it.
It is. And our normal City Hall office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. So we try to make sure that somebody's there, that one or the other of us is there. We do really, really encourage people to be willing to or be familiar with what is in their property record file.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, there's always the possibility that we might make a mistake. We hope not to, but to have someone review it, the customer would, of course, know their property better than we would, so they'd be
Yeah.
able to look at it and make sure that everything is right. We have sale information at our front counter as well, so even if someone is just curious and if the person is curious to know what a property might have sold for down the street, we have that available at our front counter. So try to we consider ourselves a library, so to speak. So we have files that include everything on the building and
Yeah.
property that we can, and all of the ownership history. So we try to make that available to the public.
A wealth of information.
Yeah, as best that we can, and then hopefully people will now and then check it out and let us know if there's something we need to correct.
All right. And so is there anything else you'd like to mention people should know about your department or know about you as the city assessor?
Well, we get a bad rap for being a bad guy, the tax lady or whatever, and actually neither Joyce or I are very intimidating. We are doing a job that is a required position. It's a necessary evil. Hopefully we do it the best that we can. Again, we need to try to make sure that everything is uniform. We do have rules that we have to work under, but we absolutely want to make sure that we do the best job for the people that we can, and that they know that the records are available and that they know that we're there all of the time. We're only really front and center in everyone's mind in February and March when the Board of Review and the assessment notices are right out there. And unfortunately, at that time, we can become really busy with phone calls.
I'm
I
sure.
can give people a whole lot more individual attention the rest of the year. So I guess that I would say that if people took away anything and if they had any questions, were just curious, confused, mad, angry, whatever, feel free to contact us the rest of the year. We're there all the time. We can give real good customer service then.
Don't be afraid.
That's right. Yep. We won't bite.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. It's been a lot of very useful information. I'm sure anyone who watches this, it's going to correct a lot of false information they might have heard before or ideas that they had.
Hopefully.
So thank you again for coming.
Okay,
I appreciate
thank you.
it.
Very good. Thank you.
This has been an SCTN production.